Spencer Brown gave up 6 quarterback pressures, 1 quarterback hit, and a sack week 12 versus the Lions, and that was only one game. He was one of the worst rated tackles per Pro Football Focus and clearly a weak link on this offensive line. Gabe Davis' efficiency was only catching the ball 53% of the time in his targets. So welcome to my video here, Bills News Consolidated. We're going to talk about just some of the stats to come away with the 2022 season and how I think the Buffalo Bills are reflecting upon that and how I believe we're going to be improving that and have already improved that via free agency and now this upcoming NFL draft. Now, I already mentioned, right, tackle, Spencer Brown, clearly a little bit of a weak link on this offensive line, allowing a ton of quarterback pressures. Maybe not a lot of sacks, but 6 penalties. Spencer Brown, every single game that he played impacted the game in a negative way for Bills Mafia. And you really don't want attention to you on that offensive line when you see that you are giving up sacks and quarterback hits. It's tough. But one thing the Buffalo Bills did was they stuck with Spencer Brown. They didn't want to hinder his development. I think they allocated resources, right? A high draft pick, 3rd round draft pick for Spencer Brown. It's tough to move away from your draft picks and your draft selections, especially after a heck of a rookie season for Spencer Brown. Really showed that he could potentially be a starting right tackle for the Buffalo Bills. A 6'9" tackle. Did pretty great his rookie year, but had off-season back surgery, injured his knee or ankle. Week 7 against the Kansas City Chiefs, was seen in a walking boot, was very, very injury-riddled this past season. So what are the Buffalo Bills going to do for 2023? We bring in his backup, David Quessenberry, to bring in that competition to Spencer Brown at right tackle. But my thought here is, why would the Buffalo Bills expend a first-round draft pick on a tackle, knowing that we're going to have so much pressure from this fan base to start that player? Just look back last year with Kaiir Elam, everyone wondering why we're starting Christian Benford, a 7th round pick over a guy, our 1st round pick, Kaiir Elam, right? So I don't know if the bickering from the Bills fans, it's just a little bit of a distraction if we bring in a player, 1st round talented player, that could potentially lose out in competition to Spencer Brown this training camp. And really, I think just the value of it, the Buffalo Bills truly are betting and they believe on every single player that we draft. You know, we're not going to just bring in guys to fill a hole for that year. Like, we drafted Spencer Brown for a specific reason because we believed in Spencer Brown. We're allocating resources. We're allocating our coaches' coaching ability and their time spent on these players to develop these players. You know, so I really think the Buffalo Bills proved last year they're not willing to upset that development in those memorable moments for Spencer Brown, although he was clearly a weak link. That said, I think the Bills will still clearly bring in some competition to Spencer Brown. But, you know, you look at Deion Dawkins, selected in the 2nd round, Wyatt Teller in the 3rd round. The Buffalo Bills have never selected an offensive lineman or tackle in the 1st round. Going back to every single draft that Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott has been a part of, it's been cornerback, it's been quarterback, and it's been defensive line. You know, the Buffalo Bills really have not selected offensive line, a wide receiver, running back in the 1st round. So it's very interesting to keep that all in mind. Now, this could very well be the first draft. The Buffalo Bills select a wide receiver in the 1st round. The only wide receiver I believe would fit the Buffalo Bills is Jackson Smith-Njigba, coming in to compete with Gabe Davis and Trent Sherfield and Deontay Hardy, all the guys that we just recently brought in. And you look at all the overall targets for the Buffalo Bills and how this offense works. Last year in 2022, the Buffalo Bills had a ton of targets. But when you look at it, our running backs had 111 total targets. It is absolutely, absolutely insane. We had 155 total targets. You know, so they're taking up nearly 40% of the total passing targets from Josh Allen. So the Buffalo Bills are clearly passing the ball a lot, not only to our wide receivers, but to our running backs. You take into account Devin Singletary last year, James Cook, Nyheim Hines, even Zach Moss getting targets, right? Reggie Gilliam, our fullback, getting targets. So 111 total targets to our running backs last year. Gabe Davis had 93 total targets last year. So our running backs actually had more total targets than Gabe Davis in 2022. And that's something to definitely keep our eyes on. Isaiah McKenzie, Dawson Knox, both coming away with 65 total targets. Stephon Diggs had 152 total targets. So the Buffalo Bills believe it was 551 total targets in 2022. And what is going on here? The Buffalo Bills were actually more efficient. We actually gained more yards per target in 2022 than 2021. Now, the Buffalo Bills very strangely actually ran the ball more. We had more rushing attempts in 2021 versus 2022. So what is going on here with the Buffalo Bills? And we hear it with Brandon Beane stating that, we need to do more with after the catch, right? It's not just being efficient, right, and catching the ball. It's about getting more yards per play, doing more with each and every single reception. Now, I know Gabe Davis was not efficient, only catching 53% of the balls thrown to him, which he could definitely improve upon. Isaiah McKenzie only catching 63% of the balls thrown to him. Stephon Diggs, 70% of the balls that were thrown to him. Dawson Knox, 73% of the balls thrown to him. So we have players that are definitely efficient, that can catch the ball, sustain drives, and do all these things. But it's about doing more with each and every single reception. Gabe Davis does do a lot with each and every single reception, averaging about 53 yards per game, had 7 touchdowns last year. I mean, pretty decent for a number 2 wide receiver, especially when we're throwing the ball a lot to Stephon Diggs. So really just taking a look at this year's NFL draft and the deficiencies from the Buffalo Bills in 2022, we can clearly say that the Buffalo Bills need to protect Josh Allen at all costs. Allowing that many quarterback pressures, quarterback hits, and sacks, and penalties, all those things are all combined. It's not just about sacks. So you say, oh, well, Spencer Brown, he only allowed 4 sacks. That was 38th in the NFL. Well, it's about quarterback pressures, penalties. It's about a whole accumulation of things. How many pressures did Spencer Brown give up that forced Josh Allen to scramble and then maybe gave a sack to another offensive lineman? And Gabe Davis, right, being more efficient, being a number 2 wide receiver, seeing the best cornerbacks in the NFL now, right? Teams double covering Stephon Diggs and then putting their best cornerback on Gabe Davis. Really think Gabe Davis is going to be the best version of themselves. And we have to understand Brandon Beane. I really think he's not going to put the pressure on players to start, and he's not going to draft a player at a higher value knowing that there's pressure to get that player on the football field. We see it, the pressure, having Spencer Brown out there, not wanting to hinder his development. Why would we draft a person in the first round that could potentially lose out in competition and then just hinder his development by not seeing the field? If you guys enjoyed this video, please hit like, subscribe. Majority of you are not subscribed to the channel. I'd really appreciate it, guys. Go Bills. Peace.